Alright, so a YouTube user recently posed a question to me and said, hey, Marty, where do you do your art? What's your studio like? Do you have a studio? Well, the answer is yes. I kind of do have a studio, although I wish I could say I used it a lot more than I do, but because I mostly find myself drawing kind of in the field or painting out away from that, or just sitting at the kitchen table doing something where there's activity around me. I kind of like that. But sometimes I get into the studio and I've got it arranged just the way I want in the corner of my mid-century 1950s ranch style house. Yes, the knotty pine comes complete with the house, and I know it's not fashionable these days to have knotty pine or old tile on your floors, but I kind of left it the way it was intact because, one, I hate painting over the wood, and two, I kind of like the aesthetic of the old floor and stuff like that. So I'm going to take you on a little tour and I'll explain some things about my basement art studio here in my house and talk to you about what I do and do not do in my studio. Okay, well, welcome to my mid-century ranch style house's basement art studio. As many I know it's like you're probably looking at that saying, hey, that guy must be stuck in the 70s or 60s, but in truth I kind of like a mix of the old and the new. I do, lest you think I'm a technology Luddite, I do have a fully operating computer system, computer table, modern equipment here that I use as well, kind of as an office studio, and a couple of different kinds of color printers and black and white printers. But truth be told, I just kind of like the mix of the old and new. I can kind of see the shuffleboard tile that's still here, and I left it down because I think it's kind of cool. And besides that, this tile is really good at, like if you spill some paint or something on the floor, you can clean it up, or just blends right in with the rest of the tile. So I kind of like it that way. I do try to clean it up as well as I can, but if you do have spillage, it's like, hey, I'm not messing anything up. As for the wood paneling here, well, that came with the house, and I have this thing about painting over wood, so I never have done it. Might try to lighten it up someday, but for today it's the way it is. You probably noticed this big, huge drafting table over here, industrial old school drafting table, and that's because I started off my professional career as a draftsman. So, and I've always loved drafting. I've always enjoyed the tactile feeling you get from being able to sit down at a drafting table and draft out or lay out a nice drawing. I just moved this so I could show you, but I invested at some point in a really good drafting stool, and this has been worth its weight in gold. So if you do a lot of drawing and you have kind of a table or something that you use, good drafting stool is really excellent to have. Helps support the back, and this happens to be a good one. It's nice. It's got an ergonomic design. You can raise and lower the support, the foot ring here, and it's handy, and it slides, and it's on wheels, so I can move back and forth in the studio, and sometimes I just slide back, get something else, and slide back to the table. My drafting table has 2 drafting lamps on it. That's something somebody might notice right away. Well, why do you have that? Well, I like lots of light when I draw. So on my table right away, you'll notice a few things. One is I've got a triangle here and an angle, and I've got this drafting tape, and I keep my drawings covered. This happens to be just a architectural front, rendering of a front of a house I'm working on. I just keep it covered unless I'm doing drawing. I've got a T-square, a draftsman's best friend, right? And a nice brush here. This brush is a real old horsehair brush that I got from an old draftsman, and he retired. Just managed to hang on to it. An old Japanese calligraphy box, which I will keep some special pencils in from time to time. I don't have any in there now. I believe I'm sharpening them. And then here's some rulers, straight edges as they're called in the business, and underneath those I have like a lettering template and some smaller triangles and stuff. So I keep this as a drafting or a magnifying light here. So this comes in handy when you want to see something up close and throw a little light on it. So you can turn the light on and get a really close look at whatever it is you want to look at. So like for drafters or whatever, it's just handy to have that. So I have that handy. I'm sure it's for some other purpose, but this magnifier works great for me. Alright. Now on to some stuff I keep close by. These are my box of markers. I always keep some pencils and things close by as well. I'm going to move those aside. This is an old Railvac battery box, display box that I found at a garage sale or a flea market, and I just thought, hey, pencils would fit in that, and they do. It's got some pencil leads in here, various different kinds of pencils and pens that I use when I draw, and they're handy right there. Illustration magazine close by. I like to have good reference, and Illustration magazine is really an excellent magazine if you are an illustrator, and even if you just love art. Inside this old box I keep some pencil sharpeners and another magnifying glass and some other things. This is called Pencil Points magazine. It was published from the 20s on up through the late 40s. It's awesome. I use it all the time as a reference for laying out just renderings or architectural designs, and then just getting some good tips and tricks from this. Back in the day they used to really do things I think a lot better, actually. They spent some time and put some quality into what they did, and this is kind of from the era where guys used to sit at a drafting table and do some drafting, or really appreciated the artistic value of architecture and architectural rendering. So the magazine's all about that. I've got a bunch of them, and whenever I find them I grab them. Anyway, enough about that. This cart here is on rolling wheels, and I keep some chemicals in it, and I kind of have an overflow outside of it, but I've also got drafting papers and stuff like that under there, and just sketchbooks. Alright, so in here I've got fixative for my charcoals and drawings. I've got some mediums for oil painting and some odorless mineral spirits and stuff like that. In this old Underwood typewriter box I keep some frames, and it's organized where I know how to find stuff, but if somebody came in here they'd be like, what the hell's this guy got in here? Well, it's a lot of empty frames and drafting paper and stuff like that. Another antique box, and I keep some of my paintings that I've done in there, and then they dry. Sometimes I just set them up somewhere where they can dry well. And I've got an empty frame on the wall to just remind me that I need to get busy trying to do things to fill it. I never do fill it, but it's a good reminder to me that I should. And then I got a couple of shelves over here, and I'll just show you a wide angle of that. But on top I keep some paint brushes handy, and they're in these old coffee tins, which is kind of nice. I think it's a throwback, and you know, it's good to have that tin anyway, because you know, they're not going to end up in a landfill, and they're kind of cool looking. These I found at a place near my house called Axeman. It's in St. Paul. Anyway, they were like 75 cents each at Axeman. Anyway, I don't know what they were used for, but they're perfect for holding pencils, man. So I got just tons of pencils, pens, markers, erasers, stumps, stuff like that in these, and they just work great. Down here I've got these containers that you can buy at any hardware store, and they hold my paints, oil paints, and watercolor paints. And then I've got these totes, the little small ones, and you can hold you know, stuff in there, like, you know, so if you don't have tons of stuff, you can stick it in these totes or label it, and it's organized. So I've got, you know, pastels in here, and pens, and acrylic paint, marker, stuff like that. And then below here on the first and second shelves, just my reference library. I mean, just lots of different books to reference on art, magazines, a small antique camera collection. Yeah, I know, there's a lot of clutter in my studio, but you know what? I use it all. I like to look at it. It gives me inspiration, so I like to use that stuff when I find it. Alright, on this shelf I keep some canvas board, wooden and otherwise, and then just books, more books, N.C. Wyeth books, one of my favorite artists and illustrators, and then just, and that's pretty much it for those two shelves. I know it looks, it might look cluttered to some, but again, as I say, for me, it's my personal preference. It's my studio, so I like to arrange it the way I have it, and I can find everything I want when I need it. At some point in my life, I invested in this flat file. This is a flat file cabinet that you might see if back in the day in any drafters, you know, any engineering department or architectural architecture firm, so I keep all of my drawings, supplies, flat stuff in here, including some old stuff that I collect. But yeah, basically it works really handy. It's heavy. I put this thing on some industrial wheels, and so kind of made it a mobile cart so I can pull it out and move it if I need to. Believe it or not, this thing gets pretty heavy when it's filled with paper. Like I have a special paper drawer right here that has some Japanese calligraphy paper in it, some mylar, some arches, other types of heavy paper that I want to make sure lays flat if possible, so it's not out getting bent. And then the rest of this area is just stuff I use, like this thing. I'm thinking to myself, someday I'm going to draw that. That's really interesting. So I just keep it there to remind me that, hey, someday I'm going to draw that. That's really interesting. I got a camera for taking pictures when I'm in the field or my artwork or whatever. I had some more canvas here, and I got a few sketchbooks out for reference. These are all sketchbooks that are complete, or just nearly complete, and I've filled them, so just have them for reference. There's an old painting of mine that I keep handy, a couple of them. But anyway, that's really it for my modest mid-century ranch studio. It may not be much to look at for some people, and not as fancy as it should be for some others, but for me it works great, and I have everything I need in it, and I enjoy it. At some point I open up that curtain on that window, and if it's a certain part of the day, midday or so, I get good light down here, natural light. But again, if I'm not down here a lot, I'm in the field doing stuff, or even at the kitchen table where there's activity. I sort of like that, being around a lot of energy when I do my art. So yeah, that's basically a tour of the art studio. So thanks for taking the time to check it out. I appreciate the question, and drop a little love on the YouTube page with a thumbs up or a like, and I hope you get some time to do some art today.